Okay, so the next part we're going to do is actually start and looking at when trends can be actually a little disastrous to us and looking at correlations. So to do that, I'm going to just start a new Tableau session here and bring us from scratch. So I'm going to give you a data set so that way you don't have to go pull this data off the web. I'll save you a little bit of work there. So it'll be a text file. I'll give you a CSV. I'll just call it macro data. It's got unemployment, GDP, money supply, money stock, or money supply M2. This is actually going to be real investment. I'll label that better, and the 10-year interest rate. And so what I want you to do is to really find the real correlations between these variables. I want you to find that. In order to do that, you're going to need to find out if these variables have trends or not, and then detrend them. And then what you can do is actually scatter plot each of them and present a scatter plot to show me if you think it has a trend or not. A scatter plot will show you generally if it has a positive correlation or negative or nothing. Nothing, no correlation will just be look like a splatter of random dots with no clear linear association either way. So that would be like no correlation. Let's see. So to get to where we need to, so let me just walk you through. I'll walk you through one example, okay, and then I'll show you what I want. What I'm going to want is everything actually put inside of a dashboard. Okay, so you can put things inside dashboards, and I'll show you what's going to go inside the dashboard. What's going to go inside the dashboard is I want to see the plots of the variables over time, and we're going to want to see the scatter plots. Okay, so and then I guess export those and put them into some kind of a document that tells me what you think is going on. Alternatively, you can also storyboard it. We didn't get to storyboarding. If you want to do it that way and look into storyboarding, that would be icing on the cake. I'm not going to expect that, okay? So what we're going to do is start in the worksheet. Actually, let's start off with just looking at, say, something like GDP over time. Okay, so GDP, I'm going to take the date and throw it up here. Okay, over time, great. We got GDP over time. It's got a weird look over there. You know what's going on? So first off, we need to take this date and not just have year and actually have quarter year. There we go. That looks a lot better. And what other cleaning do we need? Oh, look at this. Real off the top of the bat, look, 10-year interest rate. It's up here in the tables. This needs to be down in measures in order for us to do anything really with it. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the arrow real quick and I just saw this, and let's convert this to a measure. Now it's down here. Now we can use it. Okay. So we got GDP. Now turning our attention back to GDP, we've got it plotted over time. And you can see there's clearly a positive trend. We looked at that before. That's obvious. It looks like it's going straight up, almost like a straight line going up. Okay, strong, strong, strong trend. Okay. So how to detrend this thing? First off, what we can do, let's just like actually title this GDP. That's fine. Okay, that's our graph of GDP. Now, we're going to need to definitely detrend this when we do our correlations. So first off, let's see here. Let's see, do we want to detrend first? Yeah, let's go ahead and detrend first. So what we're going to do is actually create a calculated field. Okay, so under this will be analysis. Okay, a calculated field. And we're going to call this GDP growth. Now remember, this is going to be a little bit of so you're going to want to probably copy this formula or just understand it a little bit. But remember, it's log, it's a natural log. So it's ln, you just hit ln, and then it's got enter, and then it'll populate with parentheses. Let's see, now what we're going to need to do is actually have the lag of that value. So we're going to calculate the log of the number itself, which is going to be, I guess, sum of, what is this? We have to type sum because this is a tabular calculation. It has something to do with Tableau. They like it. You have to type in sum or some type of operator like that. But we'll do sum of GDP, right? GD, where is it? GDP right there. Okay. Okay, and so that's going to be minus the ln of the lag value of GDP. That means the time period before we need to look that up. So let's see here. I think it's going to be, we need to actually go lookup. Lookup is Tableau's way of, so look, we have lookup, the expression, which will be our sum of GDP, and then the offset will be how many periods back are we going to shift this thing. So that's what this lookup function is doing. So lookup, hit enter, and then go sum GDP right there. And then what you're going to want to do immediately is, because you see now we have to be careful where we're at inside the parentheses. It automatically put us, so we're past the closed parenthesis for the summation, and within the closed parenthesis for the lookup. That's exactly where I want to be. And below tells you the syntax. So we need to type a comma, and then the offset, which will be, we're going to go back one period, -1, okay? And that should be it. I'll copy this formula and paste this in for you, okay, so that you don't have to remember it. These functions can get a little, I don't want you to get hung up on the actual mechanics of typing these things in too much. But we're going to apply that, okay, and now we have GDP growth. Great. You see, we created it right there. Okay, so that's growth. Like we can also let's look at growth over time, see what that looks like. Okay. So look, we did growth, we did GDP, and we did the GDP growth over time, and you can clearly see that the growth actually there's no trend. It's just, it sort of looks like a bunch of things moving around up and down around 0 or slightly above, actually. It looks like it's slightly above. The mean of this would be the average growth rate for the country, which US. Okay, so we have, what is that, around 2 or 3%, something like this. So there we go, and that's how we have. So we've detrended it. Now we're going to need to do this. There's going to be a little kink when we get to scatter plotting. So I want us to scatter plot one of these. So let's go ahead and once we've done this for one variable, GDP, let's go ahead and move on to another variable by starting a new worksheet. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at the 10-year rate. Okay, how about that? 10-year rate, that's interest rate on 10-year notes. So again, let's go ahead and just throw this there and in the rows and throw the date in the columns. And look, we've got a clear trend down. You see? Clear trend down. A lot of dates are missing. A clear trend down. Okay, so then again, let's go ahead and calculate the growth rate. That again is under analysis, and we're going to go down to create the calculated field, and we're going to go growth of we're going to grow the growth of 10-year rate, the 10-year interest rate, the growth of that. And so this is actually the interest rate on 10-year notes. We're going to calculate the growth, and again, that's going to be the ln, the natural log of this, and we write sum of 10-year rate, okay, and that's going to be minus the ln of now we're going to need to go back in time, so we need to look up, it's the sum of the 10-year rate, comma, -1. Okay. Growth of the 10-year rate. Now let's take that and plot this as well. Oh boy, we got some missing values. What's going on here? Oh yeah, we didn't look our year date. Okay, we messed this up. We need to do this. So for the year, don't forget, change that thing. Oh, we still got some weird dates in here. I don't know what's going on. We ended up with some missing values of some type, and it doesn't look good. I don't know what's happening. I don't know. I'm not going to actually. Oh, I know what's happening actually. You know what's happening here? This is interesting. What's happening is, I believe during that time period, the real rate might have been negative. Yeah, look, it was. And you can't take the log of a negative number. It doesn't work. So, yep, yep. Okay. That's what we got going on here. We got a negative rate. This is a real rate of interest. Um, this is actually the rate of interest minus inflation. I might need to kink this for you guys a little bit so that you don't end up with this strange result, but that's what it was. We had a negative real interest rate, meaning that inflation was actually going at a faster rate than what banks were charging for interest, means that they were actually paying people to take loans. That's crazy, huh? So negative real interest rate is something of a more modern phenomenon. You see here, and so this is also one of the things that has shut down the use of policy of changing the interest rates because we've been at effectively a zero bound. You can't really go negative and have pay people to borrow your money. It doesn't seem to work in the long run. Okay, so that's where we're at. But let's just keep it from here and see if this wasn't going to cause us some major problems, maybe. So let's go ahead, and we do note also that I know these missing values are going to cause us some problems because Tableau throws its hand up when you have missing values sometimes. But let's just try to proceed on with the scatter plot and see if this works or not. So now let's go ahead and take first off, we did GDP. Let's just look at the scatter of GDP and where's my 10-year rate? Let's look at that. And remember, in order to get the scatter, we're going to have to take date into the details. And we see this negative correlation. Okay, so what would that typically mean? If we just did the levels, this shows us that that lower rates are associated with a higher GDP. Okay, so that's what this would show us. Which let's see if this holds though, because remember we had trends. So let's go ahead again and take a look at the growth of GDP now, or the growth of the 10-year rate. And let's look at the growth of GDP growth. How's that? And we're going to have a little issue here. So the issue that we need, okay, first off, let's take date and throw it in the detail. And I'll make sure to throw in that we're looking at the quarter like that. Okay, always change that date. Now, the thing is about these calculated table values is that you notice when they're not behaving like our other ways. So our other variables we could just throw in and throw the date, we get some nice scatter. Here we do the same thing and we get nothing. And so we go, oh, geez, what's going on? And I also bang my head against this. What we actually have to do is click on, so see these calculated values, you have to drag the date into the detail. Make sure you select the quarter, and then go to the little caret, and actually go compute using date. And now let's go same with the other, compute using date. There we go. There's a scatter plot. Okay, so this starts to look a lot different, doesn't it? You see, before we actually had a very clear negative relationship, meaning higher GDP led to more. You would think if you just looked at the previous correlation, you'd think there's a very strong negative relationship between GDP and the 10-year rate. But in fact, actually what was happening was actually the GDP was growing and the 10-year rate was just systematically falling over that period. And so that's what was driving that negative correlation. And it was time. It was time itself. And so when we actually look at those, when we sort of couple the growth of this and put it in, we start to see something a lot more ambiguous. And if you're more curious and you want to go to analytics, you can do a trend line, and we can see that actually the p-value is not looking very good, is it? So if we know about statistics, let's see, how do we do this format? No, I don't know how to just look at it. Describe trend line. Okay, so look, this is a linear regression model. If you don't know this, don't worry about it. But very clearly, the standard error So very clearly, we can't distinguish the slope of this line from zero. That's what it says there. We can't really tell. We can't tell if there's a correlation there or not using just this data. I don't want to show the trend line anymore. Take it off. Okay, so that's kind of the interesting part, you see. So this is where, again, where I just wanted to show you the dangers about spurious regressions because of trends. I wanted to show you how to detrend, and I wanted to have you be able to plot things, basically identify trends with your eye, detrend, and then know how to scatter plot a couple variables to identify trends or to identify correlations, but making sure that you're doing it using detrended data when necessary. Don't just detrend everything, okay? You're going to need to see it and look, does it have a trend? So remember, first step is identify, is there clearly interest rates here were falling, that's a negative trend. Clearly that has a negative trend. Okay, so we had to detrend, okay? But if your data looks like it doesn't really have anything that looks like anything that could be a slope, you don't see a trend, then don't detrend, okay? There's just like, you're just gonna be, yeah, you don't need to do that. You don't need to throw everything into growth rates. So we're doing these growth rates as a way to kind of nullify them, or sort of, it's a way to control for these things when we're looking at correlations. So what I'd like you to do again is to go through, where's your data? Okay, go back to fields. No, here we go, data, yeah. So go ahead and complete this same exercise, except with now looking at GDP against the investment, look at GDP against money, look at GDP against the unemployment, okay? And then when you're done with creating each of these graphs, so create one of these graphs to show that you have a trend and show it detrended, and then also create a scatter plot. And then what you're going to do is throw it into a dashboard. So what I'd like to see for a final step, what I'd like to see is GDP. There's, oh, I shouldn't call it sheet 2. I should have been more explicit. This is where this is actually the 10-year interest rate, 10-year real interest rate. Okay, my dashboard, we got GDP, 10-year real interest rate, and then we have the scatter that I see between them. Okay, you know what? Actually, I would have liked, you can play with this a little bit to get it kind of how you like it. I don't really like how these are coming out. There we go. That's probably a little better, but just go ahead and play with it. And then again, that says sheet 4. That's not very good. You could call that something else. But this would be one sort of completed series where we can see each of the two. So in our dashboard, we see GDP, we see the interest rate, we see the scatter of the two. And then, so I should say actually what that scatter is. I should be explicit because you need to say if it's in levels or if it's in growth rates. So this is going to be both, I would say both in growth rates. Okay, that's okay. That's okay. So this will be for one dashboard and then what you're going to do is actually create more worksheets and create more dashboards. So basically you're going to have this for GDP and each of the variables. I want you to look at GDP against each of these variables and then just complete some dashboards, and that'll be the assignment here. Okay. I hope this gives a practical lesson. I know we've done a lot in this course, and I just definitely wanted, I think the book that gave you a really nice talk, and one of my favorite talks that I've seen presented on business cycles, on asset bubbles. I think all that's fundamentally just so interesting. At the same time, there's more to macroeconomics that I just wanted to share with you. And from a practical standpoint, I couldn't let you get out of this course without showing you about trends, how they can be useful, how they can nip you in the back, and when to use them, when to clean them, and just that'd be a travesty if I didn't teach you that. Okay, as well as also there's idea about how different variables move together in the business cycle. So we can see interest rates. Actually, it's a little harder to see on this graph, but you can actually tell them. We could play with lags and some other types of things, but actually, interest rates typically do fall um, when the business cycle is, when it's becoming more recessionary. Why? Because the Federal Reserve traditionally has been using interest rates to try to spur up investment and boost the economy. That's what's been going on. So that's the deal there. And yeah, so there you have it. I Please feel free. I think we'll just have this just due at the very end of the semester, and very good luck to you. Please reach out to me if you need anything, and it's been a very pleasure to just walk through this big course on economics. We've gone through a lot.